Prawn here with some tips on what to do in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 really early on. So some things that I'd highly recommend doing. They'll improve your skills and your performance in the world almost immediately. And you'll do this basically as soon as you're at the Herb Woman's Hut, which is here, which is one of the early bits of the game. You'll be able to use a room at the back here for alchemy, and I'm going to show you how to make savior schnaps in a minute, which will help with saving, which will be very handy. And then also pick herbs from a herb garden here. So you can see there's marigold and there's comfrey here. And I'll show you why picking herbs is really important and what a difference that can make to your skills and alchemy early on and how important it can be. So picking herbs is actually one of the most valuable things that you can do early in the game. It's easy to do and has several benefits, which I'm going to show you. One of which is it leads to the ability to then craft various different potions, including savior schnaps, which is really important for saving the game regularly to make sure you don't lose loads of progress, which can be very frustrating. So I'm going to show you how to make that in a second. But also picking herbs has other benefits to it. So if you go out in the world, and especially around that herb woman's hut, even in the first area, if you pick a bunch of things, watch out for belladonna, because that's a really valuable herb to have, and we'll need that later on. But picking herbs unlocks various different skills in the section here under the survival tree, and there are various ones here that are really worth having. You'll notice, for example, that leg day has the added benefit when you're picking herbs, you'll also get experience in the strength skill. So going around picking up herbs will eventually lead to a strength boost and perk points that you can then spend in that section. So rather than having to worry about being overburdened or fighting for ages, you can then unlock these skills. And you'll see that I'm now using Pack Mule to increase my carrying capacity. Another one is Lucky Find, which is unlocked from the survival tree. And that means you can collect extra herbs, but also occasionally you'll get treasures when doing it. Now I found various different things here, including like dice and rings and brooches and all sorts of other things that you can either sell or use with your character. Now you'll find herbs out in the wild, but you'll also find occasional herb gardens like this one in villages and nearby areas. You can go in there and you can basically just pick all the herbs, and the villagers don't seem to mind. They don't think it's theft. It's not a problem. You can basically just loot this whole area, get all the herbs. I'd recommend drying them if possible. Find a drying hut to dry them out and they'll last longer. But make the most of this because you can boost your skills up, as you can see. Now, as you know, when you're using the game, you can only save by sleeping in a bed that belongs to you. So you can see this bed here at the Herb Woman's Hut allows you to save as you sleep. And you have to find several beds in the world like that. You can buy them at inns and other things, rent those, and then sleep in them, and that'll save. But the only other way to save is either to complete a quest, a mainline quest, or to quit the game entirely. So this is one thing you can do to cheese the game a little bit if you need to. You can save and quit, then just reload the game before any sort of major events. However, making savior schnaps will save that problem and make your life a lot easier. And I'm going to show you how to unlock savior schnaps without actually having to worry about finding the recipe. So here's the recipe for you. You need belladonna, wine, and nettles. So you need to find belladonna, which is going to be the hardest part of that. And then you need nettles as well. And then this is the process for doing it. So first of all, grab some wine off the shelf on the left-hand side of the alchemy table and pour it into the cauldron. Then you'll see there's an option to press I for your inventory. From here, select the belladonna and the nettle that you've collected and then deposit that on the shelf. That then prepares it ready to go. Then what you want to do is to put a handful of nettle into the wine, and then we need to drop the cauldron down onto the fire and then boil it for 2 turns. So drop it down. I tend to use the bellows immediately to get it boiling quickly, and then turn the sand over. So we're going to put the sand glass over and wait for the sand to drain out. Once it's drained out, you'll then flip it over again. So press the button to flip it back over, and then wait for it to drain out again, and then that'll have completed the 2 turns for that. At this stage, once that has drained out, you can then raise the cauldron up. So press the button to raise the cauldron up from the fire because you don't want it to boil for any longer. And then we've got to grind belladonna. So you get the 2 handfuls of belladonna, put it into the mortar and pestle, and then grind it up. Now, belladonna is very hard to find in the world, so make sure you grab it as soon as you can and dry it out if possible, or buy any that you find from merchants, because it's going to be very useful for crafting the savior schnaps, and you'll need a lot of this to make the game easier for you. Add that to the cauldron, then drop the cauldron back down, and then we're going to boil for 1 more turn. So put it down into the position above the fire, then tug on the bellows, and then flip the sand glass back over and wait for the sand to drain out. just now until that's finished. And that process is pretty straightforward, as you can see, but the belladonna is going to hold you back from it, so you just need to watch out for that in the world because it can be pretty tricky to find. I'm hopefully going to do a video on where to find that soon, so subscribe to see that. But then you grab the file and then just pour out from the cauldron into that, and then you've completed the Saviour Schnapps. Now this is how you unlock Saviour Schnapps without even learning the recipe, so you can do this really early in the game, learn that, and then you can craft it. And I'd recommend crafting as many potions as you possibly can. I'm going to show you one in a minute that's much easier to craft, but doing so, crafting loads, gives you loads of alchemy points. Alchemy points give you these bonuses, like the ability to craft an additional potion for every potion you craft. And then if you go further down, you'll see Secret of the Matter 2, which allows you to get 2 extra potions for every potion you crafted, or even 3 in some instances. And that means that you can just keep getting loads and loads and loads of potions while you're crafting, even just doing one. Then obviously you have the benefit of going to a trader and being able to sell the additional potions that you've got. You'll see there that I've got 84 strong chamomile brews, for example. I've made a lot of those, and although the value of them isn't very high, if you produce loads, you can go and sell them really easily and make money from doing so. Also, having a bunch of marigold decoctions is useful because they're useful for healing. You can sell any additional herbs that you don't need, so you might have collected a lot of herbs unnecessarily. You can sell those, and then when you're at a trade, I'd also recommend watching out for other things, like charcoal, for example, which can be used in other crafting things, crafting soap, for example. It's also worth pointing out that a lot of the potion crafts are the same in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 as they were in the original game. So if you find recipes on the wiki, you can actually unlock various different potions without even finding the recipes in the game itself, which might be cheesing it. But marigold decoction is one of those, so I want to show you how to make that as well, because it's really easy to make, much easier than the Saviour Schnapps. If you unlock this, you can then craft this really early on, just keep repeating that process and unlocking all those points. So obviously you need nettle and you need marigold, both of which are really easy to get, especially the nettle. Grab some water and throw it into the cauldron. And then obviously, as I showed you earlier, press I to deposit your marigold and nettle onto the shelf in whatever order you like. Then we're going to put a handful of nettle into the cauldron. And don't forget, we've got to then lower the cauldron down onto the fire and then warm it up. So I usually use the bellows just to make sure it's boiling basically immediately. And then we're flipping the sand glass over to start that process. So you can see very similar with a lot of these potions in what you have to do, putting it over the fire, making sure it's boiling, and then just watching the sand glass until it goes into the right position. But we're flipping it over again because we're going to boil it for 2 turns. So just boiling it here, make sure that that's boiled up nicely, and that's then done. And then raise it up out of the way of the fire. And the next part of this is with the marigold. So with the marigold, you've got to put it in the mortar and pestle. So grab 2 handfuls of that and chuck it in the mortar and pestle and then grind it up. And you grind up this process. Now it's worth noting, obviously some of these are quite complicated, but the more you do it, the more skills you unlock in the alchemy section. And then if you make a mistake, sometimes you'll be forgiven for that mistake as well. So these get a little less arduous as you go through, a little less problematic. But once that's done, you don't need to boil it again, so you can just pour it straight into the file, and then that's ready. So if this is your first time doing this, you'll then unlock this. And as I said, you can do this early on, right when you get to the Herbwoman's Hut. So when you've done the chamomile brew, you can do the marigold decoction. Now, marigold decoction is particularly useful in battles because it will help heal you pretty easily. So it gives you a nice healing boost after a fight. But also when you've crafted a whole bunch of potions, if you're on the road and you're traveling along and you see that there are enemies ahead, you can obviously pre-apply a lot of these potions. I really like Bowman's Brew, for example, which improves your archery skills. You'll see Aqua Vitalis improves your health. You can also get the Artismia, which improves strength. All of these combined, or even just a couple of them, can make quite a difference to your battles. If you're surrounded by enemies, you've got multiple enemies to deal with, or you're just early in the game and it's a bit of a struggle to win against enemies that just seem to be better at a lot of these things. It's not just this, though. You can actually use them for other things, including talking to people and charming them, or, for example, picking locks, which can also be really handy, which is another potion you can get, Quick Finger. Watch out for that one. That allows you to pick locks more easily. Another thing you'll find in the game is you often get covered in blood and mud and other things, and you'll hear people comment on it, and actually sometimes it can affect the things that people say to you and the choices that you can make in the game. So One way to check is to press F1 on PC, put it into photo mode, and then you can have a look at your character and see how much blood you've got on you. Obviously, what you want to do is to clean that blood off before talking to people. You usually find these sorts of troughs knocking around in villages and all over the place, and you can wash yourself off there and get yourself reasonably clean. And again, you can check with photo mode to see how clean you are. Now, you'll notice that my clothing is still pretty dirty, so one solution to that is soap. Again, I'm going to show you how to craft the soap, and so that you'll unlock it, and it'll be pretty easy to craft. This is why I mentioned needing charcoal earlier on, because you need thistle, charcoal, and dandelion for this. So you can buy charcoal, and thistle and dandelion are pretty easy to find. So what we're going to do is follow this process. You need 2 lots of thistle into the mortar and pestle to grind this up, and you'll need to have a base of oil into the cauldron. So making soap is worth doing because you better clean your clothes, but obviously you can also sell soap really easily to other people. So it is worth doing. It's pretty easy to do apart from that charcoal, which we need to acquire from merchants, but it's reasonably easy to get. So grind up the 2 lots of thistle, chuck them into the oil in the cauldron, and then you need to boil this, obviously, and follow the process for doing this. But basically, we're going to set this up so that we can do this. And if you've got those perks unlocked for alchemy, you should be able to actually make loads of soap quite easily. So flip the sand glass over once it starts boiling, and we're going to let it boil for 1 turn here. And obviously go through this standard alchemy process and do this as much as you like. Make a load of them. And there is a perk for doing these sorts of things at night to boost that as well. Flip over the sand glass again, and we're going to boil it for a 2nd turn. And just keep that going nicely on the fire there. And then once that's done, lift it up and take that out of the way. Now you need to take the dandelion. And with the dandelion, you just have to add that to the cauldron and boil it for another turn. So just throw that in. You don't need to grind it. But you do need to put the cauldron back down again and then boil it for another turn with the sand glass. So you just flip that over. I like to use the bellows just to make sure it's boiling immediately before I flip the sand glass over. I found that this doesn't seem to cause problems, and it doesn't mean you have to worry about waiting for the cauldron to heat up, so it just seems a bit easier. Once that's done, lift it back up again, grab your charcoal, put it into the mortar and pestle, grind it up, and then we're going to put that in with the recipe we've just made. So just make sure you grind that up nicely and then throw that into the cauldron. So we stick that into the cauldron now, and then that's that recipe for soap done. So you can then grab a file and dispense it into there, and then we'll be able to use the soap to clean your clothes. So one of the ways to get yourself clean is obviously to go to a bathhouse and pay for it. But another way you can do it is just with soap and washing it. So you can see I've got 11 soap now. Now you can find these laundry spots around at the nearby ponds and little places like this. If you see like a little bridge that goes out near a rock, it might conveniently have some soap next to it. But you'll see there's an option to launder your clothes. So this is near one of the villages, but you'll also find them scattered around the map in various different locations. And you'll see there's a little icon on there which will say laundry next to it as well on the map near these bits of water. Basically go up to the edge here, and then you can launder your clothes. So you can basically wash all of your clothes with the soap that you've just created, washing off any of the mud from it. So as well as getting the blood off, you can also get the mud off, make yourself look cleaner, more presentable, and then you'll have a better time when dealing with people. I hope you found these tips useful. Don't forget, pick loads of herbs. It will really help, and get loads of potions crafted. If you've enjoyed this, subscribe to see more, because I'm going to be doing a lot more tips and tricks for Kingdom Come Deliverance soon. And enjoy your playtime with it, because it's a great game. Lots of fun to be had. Thanks for watching.
I'm sorry.
He's not actually dead, by the way, I should point out. He's actually alive. There we go.